Good morning and welcome to this edition of Video EFX. So we're talking to Nick Dine, who is the Head of Business Development and founder of Logiscope Limited, a company that specialises in data connectivity and messaging. Well, Nick, to start us off, could we perhaps go have a brief overview of what we mean by post-trade connectivity and post-trade STP?
Okay, so, well, it's really from the moment the trade is executed all the way through to when the money changes hands. So it's actually quite a large area. The bit that we specifically fill is from that point of execution through to the delivery of tickets into the counterparty's back office systems. And what's important, I think, in this is actually to realise that even within FX, and we do a multi-asset service, but even within FX, you have a wide variety of different workflows according to what specific business sector you're in. So if you look at the way in which banks process FX, that's very different from the way in which a fund manager or a hedge fund that's being prime broked, or indeed a corporate is going to process after the execution has taken place.
So the subject of STP, people use it very widely, STP, but as you're pointing out, perhaps you could give us a bit more detail on what's different between a bank, which presumably is trying to manage itself lots of its own different trading venues, and it's quite a diverse customer base with different asset classes, and the needs of an end user.
So, well, you're right. Firstly, STP covers a multitude of sins, and really, in its kind of purest form, what we're talking about is once the trade has been entered by either the dealer, if it was a voice trade, or by the client, if it's an electronic trade, then the human being really shouldn't be touching this trade at all. And one of the big gaps in the current STP chain is that initial point where you have the order being executed and the details being updated in the client's position keeping system. So, number one, and this is universal, it doesn't matter which sector you're in, you need to have a component which will allow you, messaging component, which will allow you to deliver the ticket into the client's booking system. And then at that point, it starts to differ depending upon the nature of the organisation that you are. So if we look at a large regional bank, for example, they might well have trading relationships with 12, 15 different banks and electronic trading platforms. And in that case, part of their problem is not just getting a ticket into a position keeping system, but being able to monitor the various flows across the various platforms, how much credit they're using on the various platforms, and so on. Okay, and as a prerequisite, what you have to do is to make sure the tickets get in, and then you have to have a variety of systems which are able to monitor the effects of that trading on a particular platform or across particular platforms. If you look at hedge funds or fund managers, quite often what they then have the problem of dealing with is the allocation of the amounts of money that actually been traded into a number of different funds. That at the moment is still largely a manual process in FX, and it really is an area which is ripe for being having its efficiencies being improved. In the retail space, actually, it's not so much a problem of the Japanese housewife knowing that she's traded, but just dealing with the sheer number of tickets which the retail sector is creating that needs to be processed. So in that particular case, what one is looking for is the ability to aggregate these tickets. So as opposed to having 15 or 20 different tickets, all of which are a dollar-yen trade, what you want is one ticket which summarizes essentially the activity across all of those 20 tickets. In the high frequency trading space, there's a demand once you've captured the ticket to start looking at how you can net the tickets so that there are again just less tickets to go and process through to back office. It costs even the most efficient firms maybe 50 cents a ticket to process. And if you've got clients which are trading 20,000 tickets a day, actually that adds up to real money. And any type of consolidation of tickets into a smaller number will create significant efficiencies for the bank and indeed the hedge fund's back office systems.
Given that this all appears to be rather self-evident, why is it then that there is a perception that the back end or the back office is trying to catch up with a much more efficient and streamlined and automated front office?
Well, sometimes the really self-evident is also really boring. And what's happened actually is that the electronic markets, particularly in FX, have taken off over the last 10 years or so. And the back office got forgotten about. It might now look very obvious, but at the time that the electronic trading systems were being built, the focus was on being able to automate the execution of a ticket. And what we've seen over the last 5 years is a dramatic increase in the volume of tickets. Essentially what has happened, particularly in the FX market, is two things. Firstly, the FX has found itself becoming more of an asset in its own right, an investable asset in its own right. And this has caused a massive increase in the amount of FX which is being traded globally. So in the last 8-9 years, we've seen more than doubling of FX volumes. But at the same time, because of the introduction of electronic trading, the size of each ticket has fallen. So 5 years ago, the average ticket size was about, interbank, was about $3 million. And now it's down to lower than $1 million. So we've not only seen this explosion in the volume of FX, but also we've seen this reduction in the size of an FX ticket, which has meant an exponential increase in the number of tickets. And so we've seen this switch from people wanting to maximize the amount of trading that they're able to undertake and start to focus on how they can make the post-trade activities more and more efficient, because you've got to a point whereby actually nobody's making any money at all at the margin, because the amount of money it costs to get a new ticket processed is about as great as the profit you're making on the ticket in the first place.